journey with Progessence Phyto Plus. But without further ado, I'll just let her take it away.
Sure. Well, thank you guys for coming, and thank you in advance for listening to my story. This has been a life-changing product for me. And there's not very many products that I say that every woman needs, but I truly believe that every woman could benefit from this, and for a million different reasons. So first, not my story, but just a quick spoiler alert. I first got Progessence Plus as a freebie. It came out as a monthly promo years and years ago. I had no idea what it was. The only thing that I knew was it sort of helped hot flashes. And my mom was going through the change. So I was like, here, mom. And I gave it to her. And so sure enough, she used it. And she found that every time she put it on, she went the whole day with no hot flash. But if she forgot a day, she would have a million hot flashes. So I don't think any of us are at that stage yet. But if you have parents that are going through it, then that's a good thing. But my own story is a little bit longer. I didn't know, but for years I suffered from endometriosis. But I just thought that was a normal period for a girl. So this is TMI, what happens in the call stays in the call. But I'm so used to talking about this. If it's so what this is like. I used to have crazy, crazy heavy periods. My whole life had heavy periods, to the point where I would go through a super tampon and an overnight pad worn together within 2 hours, completely drenched. And I just thought that was normal. So I was borderline anemic, but didn't know it. So I walked around didn't know it. And I was a really hardcore athlete. I'm 6'1", played a lot of basketball, played a lot of volleyball in my youth. And I will never forget the traumatic experience of in a playoff basketball game, going down the court and having white shorts on, and my coach calling me off, getting another player to take off hers and get me to put them on as a change, and then go down the court. So the trauma that came from that was crazy. So I sought out solutions. I went to my doctor and I was like, I need help. And sure enough, the thing they throw at me was birth control. So at the time, I was not sexually active. I wasn't with anybody. And I thought this was a bad thing. I was raised in a very conservative, Christian home, all that kind of stuff. So it was really, really awkward for me to even have to go and admit to my doctor that I had this issue and all that kind of stuff. So I was on birth control pills for years and years and years. And yes, it helped me deal with the heaviness that came from that. And it helped me deal with the pain of periods. I used to get really crazy, crazy migraines before my period. I always missed a day of school, guaranteed. And it was just really, really bad. And so finally, I got married, decided to have children. We decided to do a detox. And so for a year, I went off of my birth control. And again, sure enough, all of the symptoms came back even worse, more painful, more headaches, really bad cystic acne, you name it, anything PMS, really bad, my husband nicely says it's my anti-bitch serum, because of the fact that I the mood swings that I had were so crazy. And then I had my kids. And so I extended breastfed them. So I didn't have a period for 15 months, which was awesome. And then I was trying to have a baby at that point again, so I didn't have to worry. But I had worse symptoms between my children than I had ever had before. And again, the heaviness, the unpredictability, I go from 14 days of heavy, heavy, heavy bleeding to having only 2 weeks off, to having that come back again, to having 47 days off. So it made it really difficult to have another baby. And I wanted another baby, and I cried, and it was just awful. I didn't know about this thing then. Sure enough, thankfully got pregnant again, another 15 months, not having to worry about periods. And then it came back tenfold, just awful. And here I was, a stay-at-home mom, trying to take care of my toddler, trying to take care of my brand new baby, who was, I guess, almost a toddler too at a year old. And I had absolutely no libido. My poor saint of a husband, he was very, very patient, but I was super touched out anyways. I was breastfeeding anyways. But then also just feeling like my body was hating me because I would literally, as I said, again, bleed through a super tampon and an overnight pad in 2 hours every day for 14 days straight. So I was beyond exhausted. beyond hormonal, beyond you name it. And I was like, I'm desperate. I don't know what to do. But by that time, I had found oils. And so I reached out to a friend and she was like, you need to give this a try. And so I was like, I'm desperate. I will try anything. And so within the first month, I noticed that my headache didn't come before my period. And like by headache, I mean migraine that I used to like. My husband would come through the door, I'd tag team him and go to my bed, and he would take care of the kids because I had to have no light, no sound, no anything like that. And then finally, the second month, what I noticed is that it was more regular. So instead of having like 14 days, 47 days, 32 days, I was like, hey, this is like 27 days since my last period. And then again, the same thing would happen the next month. But by month 3, I wasn't so bitchy anymore. The mood swings were better. And then by month 4, I went from my 14-day long things to 5 days. And only one of those days was heavy, but that heavy was like the lightest day of what I've ever experienced before. And so at first I was like, well, maybe it's just because like hormones are changing. I'm not nursing as much with my babies. Da, da, da. So I've actually done the process of like, okay, I'm not going to use it for a month and see what happens. Sure enough, all of the old symptoms came flooding back. So I went back on it. After years of not having my children, as a like test for my oily team to prove to them that this stuff worked, I went for a month without it. Sure enough, what happened? A 14-day cycle, really heavy, massive migraine, et cetera, et cetera. So this particular oil has been a lifesaver for me. It gave me back my libido. My husband thanks it all the time. It gave me back energy to be a better mom. I am a stay-at-home mom and have been ever since I had my babies. So I'm full-time with them all day long. We homeschool. So I have to have energy to be around them. And I'm so much more level mood-wise. And thankfully, my periods now are 4 days long, one heavy day, and the rest is just like nothing. So this oil is a must. And technically it's not an oil, it's a serum. So it has essential oils in it, but it has other things in it. I really, really encourage you to check out Dr. Dan Purser on Facebook. He actually just went live last night to talk and answer some questions about natural progesterone and what that does for you. And the amount of women that this could help because of how helpful natural progesterone is unbelievable. So another little side story while I'm on a roll is I have a friend who had been trying for years and years and years to have a baby. And she reached out to me desperate. And I was like, here you go. I gave her a bottle. Within 3 months, guess what happened? She has now a happy, healthy, bubbly baby boy. And so I even she won't say that this did it, but that was the only change that she made. And sure enough, it happened after years of struggling. So progesterone is one of those hormones that I don't think gets enough like light shone on it. I feel like everybody talks about estrogen dominance, and estrogen this and estrogen that, but progesterone is so key for so many of us. Naturally, your progesterone levels are going to fall after you have a baby. That's just normal because progestation, right? Gestation is keeping your baby in you. So after that baby comes out, your progesterone levels will fall. But more than that, I feel like progesterone is one of those things that we don't realize is cyclical just within a month too, right? So we need to keep our eyes on that. I use it every single day, every single day. It's now like my perfume and I love it. I just use it on the insides of my wrist and rub it together and it's incredible. So if you haven't tried Progestins Plus, you need it. It's great for your skin. It's great for your hair. It's great for your hormones. Clearly, it's just my favorite. So is there questions? I could literally talk like 45 minutes about the science behind it and stuff, but I don't want to get into that unless there's questions.
I have a question. Do you only use this one, or you use like clary sage, dragon thyme, all the other hormones oil?
Yeah, I actually don't even own dragon thyme. I didn't know about it early on. And so I don't even have it now because I was able to use progestins and found that that was helpful up until last year. So my babies are now 10 and 7.5. So this has been a long journey. And I am going to be 37 this summer. So I'm getting a little bit older. So I actually have an Itovi, and the Itovi has been telling me that I needed some extra hormone support from some other things that normally when I teach like hormone classes, it's usually for older women. Well, guess what? I guess that's me now. So I actually do use clary sage more often, and lady sclereol has been coming up in my Itovi too. But clary sage is like a must in my house because of what it does to my husband's libido when he smells it. So if you're not trying clary sage yet, give it a try and see what happens, because it's been a good change in our life.
I have a question too.
Sure.
I love all this. It's amazing. And I always hear such amazing testimonials from PPP. But my first question is, did you use it while you were breastfeeding?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I found out about it. I found out about it after, like, when my period came back after my second baby. So when he was about 18 months along when I decided to give this a try, and I nursed him till he was almost 3. So I started using that. Yeah.
And you didn't find it impacted your milk supply or anything like that?
Not at all. It does have a tiny bit of peppermint in it, but not very much. And I recommend, like, for new moms, it's great for hormonal support, but I never recommend it for moms until they have that established breastfeeding relationship. So the first like 2 months, I say, like, deal with the hormonal ups and downs. That's just part of life of a new mom. But then after that, then I always say, give it a try, because if you have that good breastfeeding relationship, and like I did attachment parenting, so like baby wearing was my thing. Like they were attached to me. We co-slept, we did it all. So it wasn't that, like, we had everything set up so that he was with me no matter what and kept my supply going because he was on demand. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then I have one more question for you that I often get asked too is, you said it was good for every woman at the beginning. And this goes, I think, and I feel like you can shed more light on this than me, for people past the menstruation phase of their life cycle too. Like it helps to support progesterone, not only for when you're experiencing, like, when you're in your birthing years, when you're experiencing just a period, postpartum, like for the rest of your life, and then also through the menopause stage. Do you know a lot about that?
Yeah, it's been something I've been learning more and more about as I get older, but also because, as I said, I gave it to my mom when she was in the thick of it. And so she swore by it for a good 6-7 years while she was going through that big change. And yes, it saved her from hot flashes. She's a teacher, so she would, like, the poor kids used to, like, have to deal with her opening the window in the middle of, like, the freezing winter because she was just couldn't handle it. So then she started to use this and it was great. But yeah, in general, as like life goes on, even like older women, just because you're not of gestational age doesn't mean that you're not of, like, you know, lustful, like, sexual life. You know what I mean? Like we're these bodies that are supposed to be able to carry on a relationship and have fun with our spouses and stuff until we die. And to have that balance between, like, estrogen and progesterone, those are your two main, like, sex hormones. And if one of those are off, your libido is going to be off, right? So even if you are not of gestational stage, then yes, you can benefit from it.
Cool. That's awesome. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? I often tell people, now this is something that I've had because I've had many, many new members join me just for this one little bottle. And one bottle, like when people ask, like, how long does it last? With most natural products, oftentimes when your body is out of balance, you're going to need actually more of something, which is the opposite of what you would see in, like, allopathic medicines, where you start with a little tiny bit, and as your body gets used to it, use more and more and more. With natural products, you often need the opposite. So you may start to use it and use a couple of drops and you realize that it's not really doing very much, or your body's going to have, like, a massive reaction and those symptoms will get worse. And that's like it's screaming at you saying, like, I don't like this thing that you're introducing to me, but you actually need more. And there's a really great book, I think it was out on Amazon, but it used to be with Life Science Publishing, called Taming the Dragon Within. And it explains that balance of how things happen. So So I had a friend actually who got it, and that's what happened to her. It was like everything got worse. She had more intense migraine. She had worse periods, all that kind of stuff. And I had to explain to her, I was like, use more, your body needs more. So instead of just 2 drops, use 4, like double it and see what happens. And sure enough, that was what she needed. So just keep that in mind if you are giving it a try, and you definitely need to stick with it. Like, again, with most natural products, you're not going to see a change like immediate. Like, give it that 90-day trial to really let it do its work. Now, you should not be using this if you are on birth control. Just keep that in mind, because it can mess with what you're using. I am a huge advocate of like natural fertility planning and stuff. So if you have questions about that side of things, then you can always just shoot me a message on Facebook or whatever after the fact. There are lots of different options for that, but yeah, just keep that in mind too. How do I apply it? I apply it by just putting a drop here like this, and then I rub it on like the excess on like the carotid arteries. I have a friend that she tried it on her wrist and it didn't really work for her. So she actually applies it on the back of her neck. Another thing that you can do too, I don't know if you're really aware of it, but is muscle testing. So if you don't know how much your body actually needs of something, then you can do muscle testing. And that's like a super cool voodoo-y type of thing. That was really interesting for me when I first learned about it. But any place that has like thin skin is a good place to put it. Most people tend not to need like a carrier oil with it, because it already is like, it's a serum, it's not just an oil. But I have had a few people that found that they had some sensitivity to it, but often those people lived a more toxic lifestyle, right? So there was that instant, like they weren't using essential oils, they weren't using natural cleaners anyway. So they had, their body was like, whoa, what are you doing to me? So that's pretty common that that somebody like that might have a skin reaction and would have to have some carrier oil instead. Yeah.
Amazing. That was such useful information, Laura. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening.
Awesome. Well, I guess if nobody else has any questions, feel free to message anybody who sent you here, obviously, and ask questions. We can get them to Laura, or message Laura directly if you have contact with her. But thank you so much for joining tonight, guys. And like I said, I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning of the call, actually, we are doing these calls every Tuesday and we're telling different stories every Tuesday. So if you enjoyed tonight's call, if you know somebody that might enjoy joining in on these calls, please let them know, send them the link. I'm actually not sure what we're talking about next week, but it will be a good one, I'm sure. All right. So I guess with that, we will call it quits for the night, and we will see you guys hopefully all next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Have a